Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and for this episode, I'm joined by pianist Nadia Shpachenko, whose latest album is Invasion, Music and Art for Ukraine, and it features music composed by Louis Spratlin, who sadly died just a couple of days ago. Invasion is Spratlin's response to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And you're listening now to the start of that piece. Welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. I'm Hilary Seabrook, and for this episode, I'm joined by pianist Nadia Shpachenko. Okay, Nadia, your album Invasion, Music and Art for Ukraine is out now, and I'm very excited because it's obviously in support of Ukraine, which has been invaded by Russia, and the people. There's obviously a lot to unpack here about your background, but let's just start with the music, because the music is just beautiful.
Thank you. So the very first piece on the album is called Invasion. It's a sextet. It's for horn, trombone, alto saxophone, mandolin, percussion, and piano. And this piece was composed by composer Louis Spratlin. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning American composer, and he wrote all the music for the CD. And this particular piece, the title piece, Invasion, was composed very quickly. He started it on the first day of the war, on February 24th, which is also my birthday. So when the war started, that was such a horrific day. And I spoke to Lou. He's also a good friend of mine. We collaborated a lot before. He wrote a very large and significant piece for my album, The Poetry of Places, before, and many other pieces since then for me. And he wrote a lot of music for me during the pandemic. But when the war started, we spoke, and he wanted to write a piece about this war to kind of put his anger and just his frustration and his to show his support for the Ukrainian people. And since I am Ukrainian American, and I'm actually from Ukraine, I grew up there in Kharkiv, in a city that is one of the most impacted cities. It's been bombed every day since February 24th. They've destroyed, they're destroying residential areas, like historic buildings, everything. Infrastructure, of course, these days they're just trying to destroy infrastructure and the power grid, but and like so that people would freeze and starve and stuff like that. But so it's been very personal for me, and we are very close friends, and we were already planning to collaborate on an album at some point because he wrote so much music for me before. But now we decided to make this album all about Ukraine. So he wrote this very significant, very just powerful and amazing piece, Invasion. And then all the other pieces, include an Invasion, of course, have matching paintings that were made in response to the music by artists who are currently in Ukraine, who are staying there and who are experiencing the war there. And so there's connection to Ukraine through every single piece. And of course, Invasion, the Invasion piece has art that's in response to the war itself. They didn't need to write it in response to the piece because they're making paintings and artworks in response to the war. Many artists there do that. That's kind of how they cope and how they express what's happening through their art. So there's already a lot of art being made. So I found a lot of wonderful artists who are focusing on making art about the war. And I purchased a lot of the paintings. I commissioned a lot of the paintings. And then the other pieces that weren't specifically written about the war, that were written during the pandemic mostly and a little bit before, in character, they're just so deep, and they explore basically the whole range of human emotion. It's a very diverse album. It has everything in it. Every piece is different and captures the imagination of the composer, like for a certain aspect, like in the rags, he's responding to nature and people's connection to nature, and also very specific places in New England that he really admires. And then other pieces, they also, they're connected to what's happening now. They could be connected through their character very much, and so the artists there really captured that as well, and even wrote down like what they thought about the music, what it meant to them, and made incredible artworks about each piece.
Yeah. I mean, all of the music is just, it is beautiful. It's one of those things you can't put into genres. It makes me cross. It doesn't make me cross. It's wonderful, but there's something about me that wants to kind of go, well, this is classical and this is jazz and this is, but this crosses all of those borders well, which is right actually in that context, isn't it, of Ukraine? So
yes,
it's wonderful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, and there are so many styles explored and referred to and reminisced about in the music.
Yes, it is. So I love this album because the music is extraordinary, but there's also the art, which you can see at the same time as you're hearing the music, and then there's also obviously the background. And the fact that the proceeds of this are going to help people who are suffering in Ukraine at the moment.
Yes.
So it's amazing. It's a beautiful album, and it wins on so many levels. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to do something. I immediately after the war started, I got together with my colleagues, and we put together a very large Ukraine fundraiser concert, and actually raised almost $50,000 for Ukraine. That was just 2 weeks, I think, after the war started. It was organized by a friend of mine, Irina Krichkovsky-Locks. She has a really beautiful hall that's in the music school that she founded. And it was just a great event. It was both live and on Zoom. People from many different countries tuned in and donated. So I've been involved in things like that, but I wanted to also have something a little bit more timeless, something that's not just the one event, but it's always there. So I'm actually collaborating with 2 humanitarian aid organizations now. When people donate directly to those organizations, they also get the CD. So we have a way for people not to just buy it on Amazon or anywhere else, which they can also do, and all of that money goes to these charities. But if they donate directly, they can donate as much as they want. They can donate more, and most people choose to donate more. One of those organizations, Razom for Ukraine, raises money for humanitarian aid, general humanitarian aid. Now they're focusing on keeping people warm, on getting power generators, especially for hospitals and first responders, because it's so crucial. People are in the dark there with no power in most of Ukraine. And then the other organization is the Lisa Batyashvili Foundation. It's located in Germany, the foundation itself. Lisa is a wonderful violinist, and she has a foundation that generally helps musicians around the world, all kinds of musicians. But then she also has a specific part of her foundation that's now dedicated to Ukrainian musicians, especially ones that are the most affected from the most affected areas. Alexander Vavilov, who is a Ukrainian-American violist, and he's located in Boston, he got together with a foundation here in the United States where people can donate here and get a tax deduction, and then that money is sent to the foundation, Lisa's foundation in Germany, and then it's sent directly to musicians. So this is actually help for people, and these people, they write their stories afterwards, so you actually know where the money went, and you've supported musicians, classical jazz musicians. So it's very personal that way. I like doing both things, so that it goes to people like me, people who dedicated their lives to music, but also to all people, helping with medicine and heat and all of those things. So like they helped all of Mariupol Philharmonic, for example, because that's a city that's completely destroyed and taken now by Russia. And so people lost everything. These musicians, they lost the instruments, they lost all of their livelihood, their houses, their everything. So they had to flee. So this is actually often life-saving for them. So I'm donating myself to these foundations quite a lot, and of course proceeds from the CD and proceeds from concerts. I just had some fundraising concerts just last week, and a lot of people donated. So I'm trying really hard to do what I can to help, and also to spread awareness of what's going on, and also to introduce the talented artists from Ukraine to the audiences here in the United States and other countries in Europe and everywhere else.
It is wonderful.
It's great to feel the support of people around the world. I think it's really important, and people feel supported, and that helps them keep their spirits up and keep fighting. And of course they would do it anyway. They're just so dedicated to winning this war and to claiming their their country, their land, their culture, their independence. But feeling the support of people around the world, I think, really helps.
Good. So tell me a bit about your background. So how have you ended up where you are today?
So I was born in Kharkiv, Ukraine. I grew up there. I came to the United States to study. So for my undergraduate degree, I studied at the Laundry School of Music in Cambridge. And then I got my master's and doctoral degrees at the University of Southern California. I had wonderful teachers. I studied with Victor Derivianko during my high school years, and then with Victor Rosenbaum for my undergraduate degree, and then John Perry for my graduate degrees. And I was just very fortunate. I had wonderful teachers. I had wonderful opportunities here in the US to perform, to make a name for myself, to establish myself. I'm actually professor of music in California at the California State Polytechnic University in Pomona. So I teach full time and I perform, and the university supports all my performance and recording activities, which is really great. It's considered part of my job, actually, like a research, for somebody not in music. They write books, and for me it's performing concerts and recording CDs and presenting at conferences, things like that. So they're very supportive of that, and that really helps. I always was very interested in contemporary music, in premiering music, written now. And of course, I was so honored and so excited to work with composers when they started writing music for me specifically. And when I had my first sabbatical in 2013 at my university, my big project was to commission composers to write a whole CD worth of music and record it. And it was a huge project, and I ended up with a CD called Woman at the New Piano. And that was my first major solo release on reference recordings. And ever since then, I've been collaborating with that wonderful label, Reference Recordings, on every solo disc. So this Invasion disc is actually my fourth one, and I have a fifth one coming out in June or early July, which is going to be about soccer. So they've been just really great to work with, and I'm especially grateful because they are contributing so much. They're not making any money off of this album. They're donating everything to Ukraine. So it's not just me, it's them. We're all doing this and doing our part. So they're amazing, and they're just such a great label to work with. So ever since that CD, I would say 90% of my focus has been commissioning music, performing, promoting music by contemporary composers. And of course, I also play standard repertoire as well. So I'm very fortunate to have so many different opportunities as a musician.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. It's really good. And it's exciting that you've got another one already on another album on its way.
So yes, I'm recording it in 4 weeks.
Wow.
The album about soccer, actually, that was the one that was supposed to come out first this fall. And then I was going to make an album with Louis Spradlin after that. But once the war started, everything changed. And we decided to make an album for Ukraine. So we kind of changed all the plans. So the soccer album had to be postponed a little bit, but now that this album is out, and I'm still working really hard, trying to raise money for Ukraine and trying to promote this album, but I'm also performing the soccer, the GOAT program. I'm calling it GOAT now. It's a working title. The album will probably have a different title, but I have 10 wonderful composers who wrote music specifically for my project. They're all about different aspects of soccer, of the game, and
wow.
So it's very exciting. It's actually going to come out next summer, just in time for the Women's World Cup.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So why soccer? Why are you interested in that?
I am so passionate about soccer. My son is a very dedicated soccer player. He's he's on a team that competes nationally, and he's just very, very focused on being a soccer player, and he just lives and breathes soccer. And so do all of us, so soccer is just such a big part of our life. And my husband, Barry Werger, he was actually the recording engineer on all my previous albums, the first 3 albums. He won a Grammy with me for the Poetry of Places album, but now he's really focused on producing. So he knows a lot about soccer, and he has worked with composers, had original ideas about like where each piece could go, discussed them with the composers. Composers came up with their original ideas, and so he's producing the whole project. So it's a family project, and so we are basically interested in just bringing up many different aspects of soccer. This is something that's very new, hasn't been done before in classical music, and we just thought it would be so interesting to combine the art of soccer. It's just such a beautiful game. It's actually called The Beautiful Game.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. I just love watching soccer games. They're so complex. It takes a lot of decision making, a lot of really, it's really an intellectual game. It's a game of the mind. Of course you have to have great skills, but it's just so wonderful to watch, how the decisions that people make on the field, and how that all works. And I just thought that combining those 2 art forms, a very high level game of soccer, and of course classical music, contemporary classical music, would be just such a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that project as well.
Yeah, and that's brilliant that it's going to be out in time. Your album is going to be out in time for the Women's World Cup, because we're very keen. In England, especially, that the women's team is they play at such a high level, and so many people have got behind women's. We call it football, but that's because you have American football, don't you? So
right. Yes.
but soccer it's just such a big thing now, and that's amazing. I'll be really interested to hear those compositions.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll definitely let you know, once the CD is out, and hopefully you can get one and listen. And both high level soccer and classical music, they require dedication since a very young age. So it's a huge endeavor. It's a huge dedication since a very young age, daily practice, organization, planning. Really, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of dedication. And so I feel like it's a real art form, soccer, and it's just so great to bring them together. And of course, women's soccer, one of the pieces on the album by Dana Kaufman addresses sort of the plight of women in soccer. And she actually has quotes from, the person who founded women's soccer, the British Ladies Football Club, Nettie Honeyball. So she was the pioneer in this in 1890s. And there are actual articles. So she's using quotes from reviews and magazines about those first games of those first women's teams, and they were saying things like, oh, women can't play soccer, this is outrageous. They were just mainly discussing the clothes that they wore, and they were just not taking them seriously at all. And it's so interesting to look back at that, and there are still struggles, equal pay and all of those struggles that women in soccer go through. And so she's bringing that the attention to that. So, and it's interesting. So it's from Britain. So kind of that's where it all started. So it's very fascinating. There are many different things that I explored, but that particular piece explores specifically the women's contribution and their art. And here also in the US, we have such a strong women's team, of course.
Yeah,
and,
you do. Yeah.
So it's definitely a very important event, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really glad that the CD will come out right in time for that.
Yeah. And I think another of the parallels, obviously, to get to that high level in soccer, just as in classical music, as you say, you have to have dedication. But also there's something about the although people love playing for their national team against another national team, there's something creative about the way that 2 nations can come together on a football pitch
I
and
think so,
just kind of
definitely.
forget about everything else. It's just about the football at that time.
Yes, yes. And I was so excited to watch the, the World Cup,
Yeah,
and especially the final game. That was just so incredible. Messi is one of our, well, he's my son's idol, and he's
right.
our, you know, our
Yeah,
favorite, one of our favorite players of all time. And
right.
it was just so amazing to watch that game. It was just such a phenomenal game, and it just was really inspiring, especially now when I'm performing this program and preparing it for
Sure.
recording. It's so inspiring to be able to see these incredible players from different countries come together and
Yeah.
compete. And and actually it's interesting because many of them are representing their own countries, but they also like play together on the same teams in many different
Yes.
countries. So it's truly an international sport, which is great.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
international cooperation and international collaboration is just such a great thing. This is the world orders that we were enjoying up until this war in Ukraine. It just seemed like it was so great. Like people could, even from Russia, people could travel everywhere, people could
Yeah.
collaborate, and then
Yeah.
suddenly they're going back to the times when when Soviet Union was isolated. So they're isolated now, and
Yeah.
it's just going back to these times that were not good.
Yeah.
And it's so important to be collegial, to collaborate with people of different nations, of different backgrounds, to be accepting of different people, and just to not be so and grabbing
Yeah.
territory basically, and just to be good citizens of the world. I think
Yeah.
that's what's at stake now, unfortunately, with this war. This world
Yeah.
order is kind of falling apart a little bit, so it's just a little scary.
Absolutely. I struggle with calling it a war because it feels so unfair because it's so one-sided.
It's
It's
genocide. It's
it
basically
is.
genocide.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's just awful and it's just so destructive, such wanton
Yeah.
destruction and
Yeah.
and largely focused on, as you say, infrastructure and uh people, individuals. It's not focused on military against military. It's military
Exactly.
against people.
Yep,
Awful.
exactly. It's just trying to starve people, freeze people,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like during the 30s, Stalin, starved millions of Ukrainians to death on purpose, and now
Yeah.
it's horrific. It's definitely horrific, and I just hope that somehow this gets resolved. And
Yeah.
I don't
I
know how
agree.
it's all going to end, but it's difficult. My father, he's there, so I talk to him every day, and so I'm definitely very connected still to everything
Right.
there.
Good.
So
Well, I wish him and all your family and everybody who's over there absolute. Let's hope this gets finished quickly and soon, and we can get back to repairing the damage that's been done in Ukraine.
thank you so
So,
much.
but thank you for joining me for this podcast. It was really wonderful to talk to you, Nadia.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you and
Yeah,
discussing my albums.
yeah, it's been brilliant, and I am absolutely getting you back on to talk about the football one when it comes out in the summer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Nadia Shpachenko. It was really sad to hear the news about Lewis Spratlan this week, and I'm very sad that he's no longer with us. But it's lovely to hear this piece of music and the others that are on this album performed by Nadia. You're listening now to the end of Invasion, that piece that Lewis Spratlan wrote for Nadia to perform. I've got a new feature on the podcast, which is that you can now become a subscriber. So please feel free to press that button. But right now, what's more important, I think, is for all of us to support the people of Ukraine, as well as the people of Turkey and Syria in the aftermath of that dreadful earthquake. I hope this finds you well, and I look forward to joining you again for another episode of Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.